Welcome to another Entrepreneur Conference preview. My name is JB Bolvadin, co-founder of Entrepreneur Conference, and I have with me a very special guest and a very, very good friend, Rene Rodriguez, founder of Amplifii. Literally, a few years ago, met Rene, and I had the privilege of Rene hosting one of his Amplifii events at my office. And what I saw was a man in literally 3 days handle problems that people have had over decades or their entire life and change them. And since then, I've always been a huge fan, a huge admirer, and the fact that he keeps innovating is really incredible. So without further ado, I'd like to bring him on. Rene, thank you so much for being a part of this and being a part of the event.
My pleasure, JB. It's always good to work with you, my friend.
So, I'm super pumped, and I know you're already big in your space, but for some people who haven't met you yet, I really wanted them to get to know you a little bit better. Can you tell us a little bit about Amplifii and also how it came there? Like, what brought you there and what you're working on now?
Sure. So I've been in the space I did the math recently, it's scary, 27 years. And my background is in behavioral neuroscience, and so I look at things from a scientific perspective, but not from a research perspective. That I left to the smarter people. And for me, I always ask the researchers, what does that mean to this study that you just did? What does that mean to sales? What does that mean to communication? What does that mean to conflict? What does that mean to leadership and influence and presentation? All the things that sales professionals need really can benefit from understanding neuroscience, and especially if you're leading teams and understanding those different elements. And so my background in applying that has really helped me create a very unique sort of view into the marketplace in terms of what sales professionals and leaders need. They need to be able to communicate ideas in a way that people will engage with and also, more importantly, act upon. And so the study in the field is pretty endless. It's exciting. It's constantly innovating. And we've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of folks on helping them amplify their message, amplify their influence, if you will, in the marketplace.
That's awesome. And watching it firsthand, it's so impressive. What are some of the common issues that you see when working with someone at the beginning of Amplifii or your clients? What are some of the common issues that you're seeing that you're able to start addressing for them?
For sure. We always begin with body language. Most people weren't taught about the reality that we're communicating things all the time, and before we say a word, we're communicating with our body language. And so, we address that quickly and swiftly, if you will, in looking at some of the things that are maybe incongruent with their messaging. A lot of people unintentionally send messages with their body of insecurity. They send messages of maybe being confused and unsure, when in a sales environment or in a leadership environment, you want to convey the message of confidence and clarity. And so there are specific things that we can do. And what's really fun, though, about that, JB, is that a lot of times we know that what we think about affects our body. And so we think, well, we have to know something before we can be it. But a lot of times, research is now showing that the way we stand, our body can affect how we think. And so even though we may not feel confident, if we stand confidently, if we do things in a confident manner, the brain starts to go, wait, hold on a second, I guess maybe we are confident of this, and we can portray that. And so we use that not in a way to trick people, but in a way to begin the foundation of confidence and begin the foundations of influence, so that we can now have an audience that's going to listen to our message. And so body language is one, and then the second piece would probably be the sequence in which we talk. We were taught the opposite of talking in the opposite of how the brain actually works. And so we go and we cover all of those elements to really uncover a very simple sequence that helps people create influence quickly.
That's awesome. And so what are some of the evolutions you see as people first come up there? They probably think that's not possible to be able to, with these minor adjustments and with these things that you're teaching them, to be able to do it. And then how long do you usually see that progression where someone starts to get better at what they're doing?
Well, it can happen immediately. I mean, you watch somebody that immediately stands and they cover, I'll stand back here and show you, they'll cover their private parts. We call it a fig leaf. And so the moment you're covering an area that is considered a source of power, you're communicating the wrong message. And so we teach people something very simple. From their belly button to their eyes is where they want their hands. We call that the influence zone. Now, in a virtual world, I have my hands in this zone here, but you really can't see it. And so we have to learn in a virtual or hybrid world to raise our hands so that you can actually see them when we're communicating a message. And so little things of like, where do we put our body, or excuse me, our hands? How do we stand? Are we leaning to one side? Are we leaning to the other side? Are we accidentally stepping back and leaning, or do we lean in like we want to be in the game? And so what we say is, if your body is solid, your message is solid. And so those are things that can be changed quickly. And then what we start looking at that is saying, okay, what is the body telling us about your message? A lot of people will get the body right, and then they begin, and then the first thing they do is step back as they begin to talk. And so that becomes pretty telling in terms of, the confidence in which versus stepping forward into the message. And so these are the things that people are judging constantly in whether they want to do business with us, whether they trust us, whether they're going to buy from us. And so by bringing awareness around those elements, then we can start teaching an actual sequence for crafting a message.
Yeah, and I can tell you firsthand, and then the viewers firsthand, that you even helped me. I considered myself someone who's decent at public speaking, and immediately you were able to see some subtle things that helped me significantly, and it happened very quickly. So it's really incredible how much really goes into communication, because a lot of people think it's just speaking, but in actuality there's a lot more to it than that, and just your posture can really change a lot of it, and also the way you move, like me right now.
Well, I mean, JB, you were fun to work with because your content is so rich. I mean, you've been doing this a long time. You are what I would call one of the true sales professionals, the true sales trainers out there that are teaching the things. And I remember, I mean, we adjusted the course just to incorporate some of the ideas that you had, which I thought were just absolutely brilliant around the dollar store and things like that. I still tell that story. And so it's fun when you get people who have experience and have really deep content to be able to match the body with it, to even, that's what we call it, amplify that message even further. And so, yeah, it's fun when you really start putting the pieces together. And then when you start getting the words to match and the sequencing to match, and that when it comes out of developing your own story and the narrative from which a value proposition was born out of, now you're communicating at a very different level.
Yeah, totally. And that's the most exciting thing to see, is that evolution. Which brings me to this. What made you want to help people in this? What was the thing that said, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to focus on it. What was that draw?
I think we all want to have an impact on the world. And for me, I firmly believe that we need to listen to the gifts that we're given. And I look at the opposite. To understand something in front of me, I look at its opposite, right? We know what good is because we know what evil is. We know what happy is because we know what sad is. And we know what a good pen is when we've used a poor pen, right? We know what good training is when we've been through bad training, a good relationship because we've been in bad ones. We know life through its opposite. And so let's look at the opposite of influence. You tell a joke and no one laughs. You sell a product and no one's buying. You lay out a vision and no one buys in. And so that, maybe you like somebody and they don't like you back. That feeling, the end result of that feeling of not having influence, is the feeling of feeling invisible or insignificant, because you have no impact on the world around you. And so then we look at the opposite of insignificance. You tell a joke, people laugh. You sell a product and people buy. You lay out a vision and they buy in wholeheartedly. Now, all of a sudden, we have the feeling of significance, and we know that what we're doing has an impact on the world. Those two opposite experiences, I would argue, that might be the best and worst experiences that a human can experience. Feeling of insignificant and feeling invisible can lead to depression, attempted suicide, the things that we're really trying to solve here, where people don't understand us and we feel alone, where the opposite of that is that we have an impact. We're significant in the world. We say something and it seems to matter. People are listening. And so if you ask me from the purpose of it, it's really to make an impact and to help people see the impact that they can have on the world. And if I can help more good leaders bring good messages to the forefront, the inevitable outcome is a better world, especially with the world around us.
I love that, and I think that what you're offering and what you're doing for people is absolutely incredible, and the value of it is unbelievable. And the reason why is because there's a lot of people, like when you're unable to communicate, it's like a prison. And being able to tell that message and also impact other people is something that is really something that can make this world a better place. And what I noticed, what you do is you're actually speaking to people millions of times over, because once you give someone that gift, they're able to push that gift on and influence even more people. And people just prosper around it. I got a piece of advice, which is the key to happiness, which is be willing to experience anything and make other people's experience with you easy to understand. And I feel that what you just said validated that advice that I've heard before.
Well, I'd say every experience I've had with you, my friend, has been that you are one of the easiest people to work with. And when I say easy, it's also one of the most valuable. You've challenged me, you've forced me to grow in a lot of different areas. And so I think that you're definitely embodying that. So congratulations. I'm gonna write that one down too, to be easy to work with. And in my world, as a keynote speaker, we're doing 100 events a year. And I talk to my team, this is one of the most important things that we can maintain is for a speaker bureau or to a meeting planner, we want to be easy to work with. There's so many people in my space that have the diva complex and are difficult to work with and have inflated egos. It's unfortunate, that just because we get an audience that some people think that actually means something.
Yeah.
It's a privilege to have people listen to us, and we need to engage every ounce of self that we have into giving back the value that the audience is giving back to us. And so I think that, I love that. Being easy to work with would definitely resonate with me for sure. So I appreciate that. I'm taking that one from you.
Well, thank you for that. And honestly, it's absolutely incredible when, us working together and even, for those of you who don't know, during COVID, when all this environment of training or speaking became in person, went virtual, Rene really revolutionized it. And he took the time to even help me make my game better in that. And that's even why I'm able to stream this here instead of on a web camera. So he gave me a lot of pointers, and people like this is what you need in your life. Your network really is your net worth, and connecting with the right people definitely flows power, which is also why I'm so excited that when we put this event together that Rene is going to be participating in it, because I really believe you're going to make a big difference for everyone there. So speaking of that, the audience is coming, and it's funny because we call them buttons, and what buttons we mean is by things that people have wanted to see or things that are important to them. And confidence is a huge one. Being able to speak is a huge one, because these two things is actually what's inhibiting their sales.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can memorize the talking points or scripts or overcoming objections, but their confidence and their ability to communicate is really the problem. So with that being said, what are some things people can expect from what you have to say on the 14th at the Entrepreneur Conference?
I love that use of buttons. Well, for sure, confidence comes from somewhere. We can pretend to be confident, which is, I think, an important thing to, it's pretending to be confident with no substance, though, can be dangerous, because once you find yourself in a position to influence and you didn't work on the substance, you didn't work on what you were trying to do, it can be a dangerous place to find yourself. But if you've been doing the work and you really are good in this business, you're good at what you do, you sell a product that really solves a problem, but you're feeling a lack of confidence, that could be so many different reasons. It could be something from your childhood. It could be something that your sport or athletic coaches instilled in you, or it could be, honestly, it could be genetic. It could be just a lack of serotonin running through your system. And so for whatever it is, there are things that we can do to improve that level of confidence. And I know that a lot of people have great messages, but they were never taught in how to actually communicate those in a way that was effective. And so we're going to go over a simple 3-step process that we call the Amplifii formula to help people understand how to communicate that message in a very simple way. And the best part about it is that you don't need notes to be able to do it. What we talk about is how do we get our hearts to speak in a sequence that our brain understands. And the best part about what I call your heart is really about your values, your beliefs, and your memories. So your beliefs and your values come from past experiences, so they come from memories. And so the more we're able to share certain memories in a certain sequence, we're able to really communicate a very powerful message. And we strongly believe, we've done this with close to 100,000 people, that all of our memories and where we come from and everything that we do, the value propositions that we gravitate towards, somehow match up to our experiences growing up. If we had a grandfather who ran a shoe store, and every time people walked into that shoe store, he'd come up around that counter, he'd come up and give people hugs, and everybody loved working with your grandfather, and you grew up watching that. When you get older, you're going to notice good service and relationships for some odd reason. And if you can talk about, when you're trying to stand out in a marketplace, you can say, well, here are the features and benefits of why, here's our value proposition, versus the person that says up, my grandfather was a big influence in my life. I used to remember we'd go into his shoe store and he'd go jump around the counter, and he'd come up and give everybody and his customers a hug. And I'll never forget the impact that he had on people. And so I knew that growing up, somehow I'd want to have that kind of service. And I'm proud that I get a chance to do that today in XYZ business, or if I'm real estate. I get to serve my clients in the same way that my grandfather served all his, in honoring his past. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, now all of a sudden service, which was cliche before, has a foundation in something that's signature to you. We call a signature story or an origin story. It's as unique to you as your own signature, and it's through the story and the emotion that's created through what you just said there, the narrative, that people bond with. And then on top of that, you can build your value proposition. You can talk about products and services, but upon a foundation that people trust. And that is sort of the secret weapon when it comes to influencing at a high level.
That's so awesome. We're charging for people to watch this podcast now. That's too much information. This guy just nailed it. So, I mean, look, here's the thing. I'm so excited to have you there, Rene, and I think the people, those of you who already know you, know that they're in for a real amazing treat. And then on top of that too, those of you who don't know, you're about to really, really, really get an incredible experience. And more importantly, September 14th, you're gonna leave with a real skill, and real skills actually, that you'll be able to take out to the marketplace and immediately win with. Rene Rodriguez, it's such a pleasure, and I'm so excited to have you. September 14th, guys, get your tickets now, entrepreneurconference.live. Rene, thanks again, and I'm super looking forward to 3 weeks from now.
Thanks for putting us on, and it's an absolute pleasure. I look forward to meeting everyone there. Take care.